The first stage of project management is conception and initiation. Now, there are certain things which are done in this particular stage. First of all, we have the identification of initial ideas for a project. That means, for example, you're starting a project, so you need to identify all of the ideas for that project, how you're going to complete each stage of the project. You need to have solid ideas. What is the theme of your project? What are the important things that you want to achieve at the end of this project, which can also be your goals and your objectives. Another thing is the identification of the key stakeholders. These are the people who will be affected in some way or another by the project. Okay, like if the project is going to be delayed, this is going to affect the project. Or you could just simply think of it as the parties who are directly interested in this particular project. Those parties will be the stakeholders, the key stakeholders over here. Fourth is at this stage when you're initiating the project, you need to do a feasibility study, and in that feasibility study you're going to see whether it's okay to actually, go on with this project or not, like whether you have all the resources, all of the the things, the requirements that you actually need to start the project. Do you have them or not? And if you do this project, if you complete this project, will it benefit your organization or not? And you have to see, just like I mentioned before, you have to see whether you have the resources or not, whether you have the finances available or not, and the most important thing, do you have time to actually complete this project or not? So this would be the feasibility study, where you see whether going for this project is a feasible idea or not, whether to do this or not, would this be beneficial or not. All of these things are decided after you have during the feasibility study. You actually work out these things, and after the feasibility study is done, you can actually conclude whether you are going to go ahead with this project or not. Another thing is, just as I mentioned in the very beginning, it's the identification of the project requirements. What are the things that you need? And again, this encompasses a lot of things, such as you need to kind of identify all of the resources that you're going to need. This can be the software, the hardware, even the human resource, the people you're going to need to complete the project. Those are considered as well. And this is really important that you identify the project requirements so that all of the stakeholders, they're aware of the project's expectations, right? So the stakeholders, they know what they're getting into, and they know how everything is going to go on, and all of these project requirements, they're going to be defined, and all of the stakeholders, once they have agreed with all of those requirements, then we can move on to the next stage. Now, the project requirements have these following things that you need to actually see. Number one is the approximate budget, or you can say the finances, how you're going to cover up those finances, and what is going to be the total amount that is going to be spent on this particular project. And an approximate is made, and it's seen whether it's, again, it comes back, it's kind of related to the feasibility study. You see whether the budget which has been approximated can be funded by your organization or not, whether you have enough money to actually execute the project completely and perfectly. So you need to see the budget. Another thing you have to see is the scope of the project. Scope is basically the boundaries of the project. What are the boundaries that the project needs to stay within? And another thing are the risks which may be involved while doing that project, or it can be the potential risks that can come up as you're working on the project. And the last thing is the approximate time scale, like how much total time this whole project is going to take. Like maybe it's going to take 3 months or maybe half a year or something like that. You need to approximate the total time that this whole project is going to need. So these are the things that you do in the first stage, the conception and the initiation stage of the project management. You identify the project requirements such as the approximate budget, scope, risks, and the approximate timescales, and these are agreed upon amongst all of the stakeholders, so they know what the project expectations are. And the feasibility study is done so that you see whether it's appropriate to undertake the project or not, and whether it will be beneficial to the organization or not. And you see 3 things: the resources, time, and the finances. And the most important is the identification of the goals and objectives, all of the things that need to be done for the project to actually go on in a really smooth manner.